like the rising sun, like the rising sun that shines. Awake my soul, awake my soul, and sing. From the darkness comes the light. Awake my soul, awake my soul, and sing like the rising sun that shines. Awake my soul, awake my soul, and sing. Only you can raise a light. Awake my soul, awake my soul, and sing. So in our hearts, Lord, and in this nation, oh God, awakening. Amen.
There's nothing worth more that will ever come close. Nothing can compare. You're our living hope. Your presence, I've tasted and seen of the sweetest of loves, where my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. In your presence, Lord, Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Your presence, Lord.
Let's sing that verse again. There's nothing.
There's nothing worth more that will ever come close. Nothing can compare. You're our living hope. Your presence, Lord. I've tasted and seen of the sweetest of loves, when my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. In your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for, to be overcome by your presence, Lord. Oh, Holy Spirit, you are welcome us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Holy Spirit, you are welcome. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord. Oh, Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere.
Jesus.
Your glory, God, is what my heart longs for. To be overcome by your
Holy Spirit,
presence,
you
Lord.
welcome here.
Holy Spirit, you are welcome. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what my heart longs for. To be overcome by your presence,
I want to talk to you this week. Again, the series is Toxic. I started with toxic thoughts, toxic influences. I saw I don't know if you've seen it. He shared it with me before he posted it. Asked me could he post it, which I don't care. My pastor says poo from the pulpit. I don't know if that was verbatim what he posted on that shirt, but just get the poo out of your life. Somebody even hashtagged that this past week and tagged me in it. Yeah, there is no telling what else, and it was many other things I said last week in that, but it is so important that we watch the influence in our lives. It has such a direct impact in what we say and what we do. This week I want to talk to you about toxic relationships. One of the things, and maybe you are drawn to, it seems like every time you enter in a relationship, you're drawn to the wackos and the weirdos. Every family has that one wacko or weirdo in the family. So, and it's like every time you have a reunion, they're like drawn to you, and maybe it's that way in your professional life where you work. And maybe you struggle with relationships. And I want to talk to you in just a few moments about it, because here's the thing: people in our lives can be the greatest spiritual asset, or they can be the death of us. All right, it is so true. If we put the right people around us that want nothing but the best for us, well, all it's going to do is inspire and encourage and uplift us when we need that help. But if we put the people that don't want anything but from us, then I promise you, they will run your well dry. They will absolutely take everything that you have. And I'm going to talk a lot about that in just a few moments. The reason we struggle with relationships, you listen to me say amen. I know we're few. I know it's 4th weekend, and some of you were up late last night watching fireworks. Man, I'm glad we were up late. I don't really care much about fireworks. I'd rather, anyway. And so just stay with me just a few moments this morning. The reason that we struggle with relationships is, first of all, and really the biggest thing is, you and I were designed for relationships. I don't know what kind of TV you like to watch, and we're not talking about influence like we did last week. I said it was one of the toughest things I struggle with is what I watch, what I listen to, and how it influences our lives. I might become a zombie hunter one day. I like The Walking Dead, and so I just admit that, and several other things. But I'm not talking necessarily about that, but I like watching real shows. I don't know and I'm talking about reality TV in such a way. I'm talking about Big Brother or Survivor or Amazing Race, and those are great, whatever you like. And I'm not judging you for what you like to watch, but there's just one particular show that I enjoy watching. I can't remember if it's History Channel, Discovery, A&E. I don't know what channel it comes on. I just have it on series record. And it's new. It's only been on a few weeks. It's called Alone. It's a survival show. I really dig survival shows. I don't know that I could eat a worm or a bug if I had to. Who knows? In a lot of my foreign travel, I may have eaten. I know I've eaten a guinea pig and other things, but I'm just saying I like those kind of shows. And this one in particular grabbed my attention because in the name Alone, it is probably one of the truest reality shows that I've seen as far as survival. They sent these guys out in different locations. They're several miles apart from one another. And they're their own camera crew. They have their camera, and they have a few items to survive with and so on. And they have a satellite phone in case there's an emergency. And what's been interesting is to watch over the last couple of weeks, they've dropped like flies. And I would too. This past week, there was a grizzly bear right outside there. Put them in the most populated area of grizzly bears. Anyway, but in this show, you stay with me, I promise I'm not just telling you about the show. The main thing, though, that they take time to interview themselves with a camera. It's kind of like Castaway. You remember in Wilson, you understand. I hope we're on the same wavelength. I hope we're picking up what I'm laying down this morning. And not just talking about a TV show, but it's not the bears. It's not the mountain lions. It's not the lack of food. It's not the lack of water. It's not the lack of shelter in this. What's been the main thing, the struggle for these men that they set out, was that being alone. Why? Because we're designed for relationship. No one, and I tell people all the time, some of the greatest conversations I have is with myself. I'm the smartest person I know, man. Some of the greatest conversations I have is, I'm like, that was a great thought right there. Do I not? I amaze myself, But after a while, you have to have interaction. You got to have a relationship. You're not designed to be alone, all right? You're designed. Matter of fact, in all the things that God made, He literally said the only thing that wasn't good was for man to what? Be alone. That's the only thing out of all He created. We're the ones that fouled up creation, all right? But He said all this is good. Then He got to this and He said it's not good for man to be alone. And so you and I are designed in our DNA, the way we're created, to have a relationship. But why in the world is it that time after time and time after time we have entered into toxic relationships? It's crazy. And I'm not talking about an intimate relationship, all right? I'm talking about even professional or platonic. It just goes sideways on you in a second. It's just crazy. And so what I want to do this morning, I'll give you a verse of Scripture, and then I want to give you two major thoughts. We're going to be done in just a moment. I'm going to use two places in the Bible and talk about how we can avoid, we're going to identify and maybe set up some things where we can avoid those toxic relationships. And know that it's not to beat you up. Remember, we're designed for a relationship. One of the greatest struggles we have is being by ourselves. Listen, I know it firsthand. That's the season that I really wasn't alone, but it was just Addison and me. It was a difficult season, man. It was tough. It was scary for me, to be honest with you. That's why when I baptized my daughter, I told her she's my hero, man, because she just trooped right along. Now, it could have been that she, in a childish way, an immature way, she just accepted things. But I don't believe so. I just believe that God used her to encourage me and to know that God was working. But it's tough to be alone, all right? It is tough to not be social, okay? And so I want to talk to you a little bit about toxic relationships. I want you to look at your Bible this morning. 1 Corinthians 15:33. It'll be on the screen if you don't have a Bible with you. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Paul is addressing the church at Corinth. If you read this in context, I'm not taking it out of context. in context, he's talking about the hypocrisy they were teaching about the resurrection of Christ, and just they were just false teaching. Okay, and he quotes the Old Testament. He says here's 15:33. Do not be misled. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. I've always said this, even when I was a children's pastor, student pastor, associate pastor, and lead pastor, I say the same thing. I tell my daughters the same thing. You show me your friends, and I will show you your future. All right? I've said that my entire ministry. I wasn't original with me. I heard it somewhere. You show me the crowd you're running with, and I will show you exactly what you're doing. All right? You say, no, I'm stronger than that. No. I promise you. You show me your friends, and I will show you your future. You show me your partner, and I will show you who you are. I promise you that. Okay? So it literally says, don't be misled. And here's the thing. It's easy for us to enter into a relationship and say, well, I'm going to lead this relationship. I'm going to help this person. And what happens is, it's what Paul would write Timothy, it's this godless chatter, all right? And it ends up with just, gangrene is what he calls it. It just starts out with a little bit of affection, and you got great intentions, all right? But next thing you know, you're not leading, you're following, all right? And so toxic relationships. People can be your greatest asset. Those relationships can be your greatest asset, or they can be your greatest downfall. And so let's dive right in. Let's talk about three main. You with me? Say amen. I'll make sure you awake, man. Come on now. I want to talk to you about three main. Now, this is just three big areas that are toxic company. All right, the company you keep. All right, these are three main areas to identify that are toxic. And they're going to sound familiar to you because they're interwoven in every message this series. The first one is this. Here's how we identify, or one of the type of toxic company we have. It's the negative. Just simply put down the negative. All right? These are the folks that whenever you're with them, they drag you down. You ever been around the negative Nellies? Every time you get around, there's nothing good. Even if they start out with one positive thing, it's just immediately they go negative. I mean, you have those days where, man, your day is not going that great, and so you don't need that extra negativity in your life. And so the toxic company we keep, if they're always negative, and here's the thing, with negative people, they're incredibly judgmental. Incredibly judgmental. They're always critical, they're always gossiping, they're always complaining, and nothing's ever good enough for them. You ever get tired of that? And here's the thing, you can either be trash, or you can be the trash receptacle. You understand? It takes two, all right? So I don't want you just to think, well, all they do is spew trash, garbage. All they do is spew garbage. Negativity, criticism, judgment. All they do is criticize. Did you see so-and-so? Did you hear so-and-so? Do you know, why don't they do this? How come they didn't do that? Did you see this? And this is what's wrong with that. And all these things so negative. Well, if you want to be a trash can and a garbage receptacle, then just sit there and listen to it. Or identify that this bad company. And here's the thing. I get tired of people always being negative around me. I'm not saying that everybody's got to be Happy Smurf, all right? I don't even know if that was one of the Smurfs. I just made that up if it's not. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that, and nobody's happy all the time. Happiness is situational and circumstantial. It doesn't always going to be the perfect circumstance, and the situation is always not going to be perfect. It's going to rain sometime when you plan for a sunshiny day. That's just how it rolls. That's the way the cookie crumbles, okay? But to have yourself aligned and inside all the people around you are just nothing but negative, my goodness, how bad it is. And they just drag you down. Never going to be, never going to be. Man, I want to be around some people that believe, man. I want to be around some people that are prophets. That, man, they see over into tomorrow. And they're saying God's going to do great things. And it may suck right now, but I'm telling you, we're going to celebrate tomorrow because even though we're going to cry all night, joy come in the morning, man. Remind me of how good our God is. I don't need to be around negative people. And so if your company that you're keeping is always negative, or you can identify that one, they're toxic for you. They're toxic. You say, well, I'll bring joy to them. Don't be misled, Paul says. Don't be misled. They will take your joy and absolutely suck every bit of it. Because you know what they want? Misery loves company. Misery loves company. They will suck the joy out of your life. I promise you. Another main toxic company that we keep, if we're not careful, the negative, but the controllers. The controllers. The controllers. These folks are this. They're overbearing and demanding and manipulative. All right? They might even be abusive. They use fear in your life. They say, if you don't do this, then this. Or I did this for you, so you got to do this. And they're the controllers. And I don't need those people in my life. I don't need but one person controlling my life, and that's God Almighty. I don't need anybody else to control my life. And so you have to be careful of these relationships that you get in, that they're always negative. They're the controlling type. They always make you feel guilty. I have to do this so they don't get mad at me. You don't have to do anything. If you're in a relationship and you feel like you have to do something to please them, then you're in the wrong relationship. As a matter of fact, I don't have to do anything for Sandra. I want to do those things for Sandra. Now, it may take me a couple days to come around. I may sulk for a couple days. But eventually, I don't want to fuss with her. Now, let's just be real. Let's just unplug for a moment. Us as men, we don't always want you to know that you win every time, ladies. We got to put up a good, strong fight. It's a front. Even though, listen, and you girls are good at faking it. So, just let us have our little pity party for a couple days. All right? That's just the way it works. More than a couple days. Some have been about 3, maybe. I don't know. All right? I'm trying to go for that divine number, maybe. All right? But I don't have to do anything. I want to do that. That's what kind of relationship you should be in. You should avoid those toxic relationships. Listen, they're always negative. They find the negative in everything. They're always talking about the past. They're always talking about the guilt. And then you got to be careful of those that try to control everything. You don't need anybody controlling your life except God. You don't need anybody in your life to bring control to your life. A third, again, this is just fast, preliminary stuff. I'm going somewhere with this ship, I promise. These are toxic company that you keep. Negative, all the time negative, always griping, always complaining. I'm serious as I can be. And listen, it's hard for the preacher too. We can have a great service, and man, God's doing good things. And I'm telling you, there's been numerous Sundays I can step off the platform and boom, somebody's going to hit me with something negative right away. And it's hard. It is hard. It is difficult. It is difficult to deal with that. Or come Monday morning, and you already had a rough weekend. It's been a tough Sunday. And come Monday morning, you clock in, and everybody that you approach is negative, or they want to control you and tell you what to do. I've got to be very careful of those toxic relationships. The third one is this, and this one's huge. Not only the negative and the controllers, but the tempters. The tempters. Again, there's so many subcategories, and it's just from my Neri Milhillian way God uses me. I'm just making 3 main areas in my study and what I was listening to as people were teaching me. The negative, the controllers, and then the tempters. A tempter should be somebody, it could be a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It could even be going into the realm of fiancé, but they want you to do something you don't want to do. They tempt you to do something that you know you should not do. And listen, I'm not talking about all these big dirty sins. It could just be materialistic stuff. It could be sexual, yes. It could be something that you know you should not do, but they keep tempting you to do that. But it could be something simple as you get around this person, all they care about is the bling they have. See, they're like the Bradford pears. They just spring up real quick, and everything you see is right here. They don't have any roots at all. You just see all the bling and all the nice stuff. Not always. Can I just say this parenthetically? Not everybody that has all the bling, it doesn't mean they got a lot of money. It means they just probably got good credit, and they're about to ruin it. I'm being honest with you. Not everybody that drives a Cadillac has a lot of money. I know many that drive a Cadillac but live in a shack. My mama taught me that early on. God rest her soul. Be careful of people that are tempters. Again, it's not just those big nasty sins. Those that just keep. It could be your friends, and you're sober, and God bless you for being sober. You're sober 3 years. You're sober 30 days. You may be sober 3 days. And someone in your circle says, hey, well, we're going over so-and-so's, but you know over there is something you don't need to be around. Not only do you need to not be there, but you don't need to be with that person. I don't need the tempters in my life. Maybe you struggle with pornography and you go to work and the guys at the job, all they want to do is tell dirty jokes or talk about pornography or something illicit like that. You stay away from them. It gets real quiet in here, but this is the world we live in. You don't hear preaching that's applicable to where you're living. I promise you that as soon as I started teaching this, you thought about somebody in your life or somebody in your past that was negative all the time, that controlled you out of fear or guilt, or you won't have if you leave, you're not taking this, I'm getting this. They just do all these kind of things, and then they just tempt you. They want you to do something that you don't want to do, or you know better you shouldn't do. I don't need that kind of company. I don't need that company. These are three main areas of negative and toxic influence and company in our life. Now, you're still with me, right? Amen? Here's where rubber hits the road, and we're going to put it into application, and I'm going to teach you the rest of the message, and this is what I'm excited about. I want to remind you, though, that every relationship, all relationships, our goal is to always minister. So when I teach this last principle, I only have two major thoughts, okay? One's identifying, and then I'm going to talk to you just a moment about how to avoid toxic relationships, okay? But before I go any further, I want you to know that all relationships should be about ministering to them. Now, because I don't want you to walk away from me. You still with me, right? You still with me? I don't want you to walk away from me and go, well, I shouldn't be friends with him anymore. You should have as many lost people as possible as associates. Do you see the word? You have to be very careful, very, very careful who you call a good friend. But I don't want you to think that we're being judgmental or critical, or that we should just isolate ourselves and only hang with my four and no more. That's not what I'm saying in this message. You get what I'm trying to say. You have to be very careful of the relationships that you enter in. And here's the thing. Because all relationships are meant for ministry, it's just like, how many of you have flown on a plane? Flown on a plane? Flown on a plane? Flown on a plane. Okay, well, if you hadn't flown on a plane, you've seen the movies, right? And you know what I'm talking about because we live in the 21st century. One of the first things they do when you get on the plane, the stewardess, she comes on and there's the video here, and she's just mouthing. She's not really saying anything. She's just going along with the video. And then all of a sudden in front of you, you with me? I'm being real with you. In Delta, most of what I've flown. And right above you, right in front of you, all of a sudden, boom, what drops down? This air mask, right? Now, this is where it gets interesting for me. When we flew to Hawaii, I had my family with me, and right beside me was Addison. I only had Addison at this point in the journey. And what was interesting to me is this, and I'm talking about relationships and ministry. What was interesting to me is that in the video, and the stewardess said that when the air mask drops, that means there's something wrong, first of all, right? And you're like freaking out, man, okay? You know what I'm saying? All right. But when that air mask drops, that means there's something going on, there's something wrong, and so here's what you do. And what stood out to me is they did not tell me to help my daughter. They said, put it on yourself first. That's so contrary to the world. Sometimes even Christianity, it's better to give than to receive. You follow me? And so we have to be very careful that we understand this principle. All relationships are made for ministry. So I'm not trying to avoid them, but here's the thing. I can't minister to somebody. I can't help Addie get her oxygen mask on if I can't breathe. So I put mine on first. And so what I'm trying to teach you in this last half of the message is that you have to be selfish when it comes to your toxic relationships. You have to be healthy before you can help someone else. You got that? You got to be able to breathe yourself before you can teach and help somebody breathe on their own. You follow me, right? Because instinct would be, I'm going to help my daughter because, bless God, my job is to protect my daughter. Well, I can't help her if I can't breathe. You know? She's on her own. Knowing that, she'd be trying to grab mine. Just kidding. Not really. So all relationships are made for ministry, but you got to make sure that you take care of yourself first. There are some things in this life it is good to be selfish about. I promise you. And so I want to remind you of a story. I want to remind you of a story in the Bible in just a moment. It's in the Old Testament. I want to talk to you, though, with our remaining time. All right? Give me about 15, 20 more minutes. Can you do that? Say amen. If you can't, then you just have to go because I'm going to take about 15, 20 more minutes, Andrew. I'm just saying, brother, okay? All right? You have to, here's how you avoid them. Here's how you avoid them. You have to set healthy boundaries. This is just common sense stuff. You have to set healthy boundaries. And I always joke about Sandra. I would get so poochy, man. I would pout when we were dating. Listen, I didn't have a clue about pastoring again. As a matter of fact, I didn't want to. Didn't even care if I ever pastored again. Didn't care. And when I say that about my influence, so I'd get so mad when it would come time for her to go home. I would say, just stay. Just go ahead and move in. Why in the world are we doing this? I mean, we're going to get married. Why not do, sounds kind of familiar, huh? But every evening, there was a certain time, she's out. We had to set healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries. It's just like that in every area of your life. That is a particular illustration. And I thank God, because after we would be married and move on, then here would be the church. And could you imagine the influence that we had? We would probably never even have launched a church. And so it's important that you set healthy boundaries. And you say, well, that's not Christ-like. It is Christ-like. Jesus himself, he would often pull away to pray. Jesus would often, listen, and here's where it gets tricky, and this is what I'm talking about. All relationships are made for ministry, but you've got to be very, very careful about who you go business with, who you get intimate with, who you let know your secrets. You've got to be very careful, because Jesus, listen, out of all the hundreds that was there, he only chose 12. And then out of that 12, how many did he let in his inner circle? 3. Peter, James, and John. That's it. You say, well, when they went in the garden, they went a little further. When he went on the Mount of Transfiguration, who did he take? Peter, James, and John. Peter was the outspoken leader of the bunch. You got to be very careful. We sometimes have diarrhea of the mouth. We blab, or we have diarrhea of the posting on social network, you dummies. You can't take any of that back. You can delete it off your feed, but it is there forever. You can't unsend the text. It is there forever, and for anybody that wants to get it, that has the legal ability to do it, they can snatch that booger down and use it to fry your butt. How dumb are we to think that we can just do what we want to do and whenever we want to do it and with whoever we want to do it? You have to set healthy boundaries. Jesus would often pull away. Matter of fact, there was a time when Peter was the outspoken leader, but he said to Peter, because Peter said, listen, I'm going to go to the cross with you. Remember, he's talking about going to the cross, and Peter's like, I'm going to go with you, bless God. I'm in there, man, I'm going to go with you. And he said, get behind me, Satan. Set a boundary. Basically, he said, Peter, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not suggesting that you go to your mother-in-law and tell her to shut up and get behind you, Satan. I don't know if that'll go over well. But sometimes mother-in-laws don't know everything. You all right? Oh, that got too personal, didn't it? That's why the Bible says leave and cleave. You leave that home, you take all the raising that you were taught there, and then you start applying it in your own way to your family. Is that all right? But I sure miss talking to my mama. You have to be very careful to set healthy boundaries. Listen, let me give you some ideas of boundaries. You with me? Let's do it this way. First one is this. Common sense stuff, man. I'm telling you, common sense stuff. But we so often forget it. It goes out the window when we want to do what we want to do. The first one is this. I'm not going there with you. I'm not going there with you. You can go all you want, but I'm not going there. When I sobered up, I've told you this 100 times. When I sobered up, I would no longer go to the bars. I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. I'm not hanging out. I'm not going to clubs. I'm not doing those things. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to so-and-so's house. I'm not going over here. I'm not going to do it because I had to dry out. I was a pothead drunk. But what they thought they could do is like, well, since now he's a holy roller, well, we'll just make him the all-time designated driver. I'm not doing that either. I'm not driving you around, you drunk dummy. Healthy boundaries. You said, but you just said all relationships are made for ministry. Yeah, but I wasn't strong enough. Because I would say, listen, I'm going to get gassed just like they are. You got to set healthy boundaries. There's places you don't need to go. Listen, and for those of you that struggle with computers, I'm telling you, there are private people out there, organizations, Christian-based, that will set up parameters on your computer because you have the itchy finger. And you look at me like, I'm telling you, this is real, man. I'm not going there with you. Let me give you another one. I'm not going to talk about it. You want to really get this one. I'm not going to talk about it with you. Let me say it again. I'm not going to talk about it with you. Let me encourage you, if it's the greatest downfall of relationships, this is it. Communication. And not necessarily the lack of communication in the relationship, it's because you've got diarrhea of the mouth with someone besides your wife. You should never, ever talk intimacy or personal business with anyone of the opposite sex outside of your wife. Never. Never, ever. Never. Men, never. Women, never. If there's one thing I've learned in a minute, did you know that when I went through my divorce, that the church I was pastoring, that there was a half a dozen women in the church that asked me out? In the church! Oh, and I know it ain't because I look good. True story, right, Sandra? True story. One even went as far as say, as Jesus told her. We were... Sandra told her. No, I'm just kidding. True story. I think I'm kidding. I'm telling the true story. I don't lie. There is greater funny in my true stories than any lie I can make up, I promise you. That's how crazy God is. I'm not going to talk about it with you. And I've said it a dozen times from this platform and since we've been in existence as one. Why in the world would you ask or talk to somebody that, man, they've been through 5 or 6 relationships themselves and they're not even one now? Why would you get relationship advice from them? Duh. Obviously, they're not doing something right. Maybe they've been in a lot of toxic relationships. You say, well, I can learn a lot from that. Yeah, you probably learn a lot of their bitterness. Sorry, no good. I'm just being honest with you. Show me your friends. I'll show you toxic relationships. I'm not going there, and I'm not going to talk about that with you. And watch this. But you listen to this one. I'm not going to let you talk to me that way or treat me that way. I'm not going to let you talk to me that way, and I'm not going to let you treat me that way. You remember that part of that main just intro more than 10 minutes ago when they try to control you? And they're negative and they tempt. I mean, they can roll all up in one and just be that one nut right there. And you think, well, you love them, and so you love them, and you got to honor that. And I'm not talking about divorce here. I'm not talking about divorcing your family, and I'm not talking about divorcing your spouse, okay? This is not a divorce. It's not a marriage issue. This is from the core, there's a relationship issue. If you're unequally yoked to begin with, it is always destined for failure. I promise. If it starts in sin, it will end in sin. I promise you. I promise you. If it starts in sin, it will end in sin, and it will be sin littered the whole time, and it will be a struggle constantly until you get it right. But you do not have to be in a relationship, whether it is a professional relationship or a private relationship, where you have to let anyone talk to you that way or treat you that way any longer. You don't have to do that. Didn't you know that you are a child of the Most High God? Did you not know that you're a princess? Did you not know that you're a prince? Did you not know that you're a co-heir with Christ? See, you think that your self-esteem is wrapped up in that other person. Your identity is not in that other person. Your identity is not in that drug. Your identity is not in that bottle. Your identity is not in the past. Your identity is not in your divorce and your failures or your falls or your freckles. Your identity is found in the Father. And He says, I love you, and I love you so much I'm willing to give my Son for you, which was the highest price of all. So you ought to treat yourself with respect and dignity and honor. And I don't have to be talked to like that, and I don't have to be treated that way. You can hit the road, Jack, and don't look back. Those are healthy boundaries. Why in the world would you stay in something that all they do is belittle you and put you down and are negative and they abuse you? You were not designed for that. Nor do you deserve that. You may be impatient. Could be the number one problem. You don't want to wait on God. How do we avoid toxic relationships? We set up healthy boundaries. Now, what if, no, I'm not going to throw that at anybody. What if you set up these, what if you say, you still with me, say amen, right? Okay. What if you say, I'm not going there with you. I'm not going to talk about that with you. I'm not going to let you talk to me that way. And I'm not going to let you treat me that way. Now, what if you set those boundaries up, but all they do is keep pressing in and pressing in and pressing in? What do you do? Second point. under avoiding toxic relationships. You set up healthy boundaries. Because remember, all relationships are made for ministry. So I'm not talking about we divorce or we divorce ourselves from the people we know. But I'm telling you, there comes a point where you have to draw the line in the sand. And here's the second point. Watch this. If they will not honor and respect you, then you cut off the toxic relationship. You cut off the toxic relationship. You end it. Listen, I love my baby brother with my life. I'm serious. And to this day, I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's dead or if he's alive. I feel in my spirit that he's alive. But I often wonder, would I really want to have that real deep relationship with him? Because every time, it begins to suck me down. And you say, well, that's hard. No, I'm not talking about I don't love him. I'm talking about I wouldn't be there for him. But I'm talking about, listen, every time it goes one way, it just starts going, spouting out. Do you understand what I'm talking about? By cutting off the toxic relationships? There are others. And here's the thing, too, and I didn't say this a moment ago. Sometimes, just like with Sandra, in our relationship, sometimes it's good to have the right person in your circle, because when you don't know where those boundaries are, or a Heath in my case, or other men and women are in this community, you may not necessarily see where to set that boundary, but I promise you, especially your spouse, they'll know where to set that boundary. And yet they continue to press in, well, then you cut off that toxic relationship. Let me remind you of a story in the Old Testament. Really, it's a book. And I've quoted it. I've said this 100 times too, but I'm actually going to dive in just a moment and kind of exegete a little truth here. Jonah. Not everyone needs to be on your boat. Not every relationship that you have do you need. Some of the people that you're associated with right now are toxic for you. They're poisonous. It feels good. It makes you smile. It makes you feel young again. It makes you feel valuable, but I promise you, you don't need them. And so you need to cut off the toxic relationship, because not everybody needs to be on your boat. And just like Jonah was told to go to Nineveh, right? I'm not going to go to the book and I'm going to put it on the screen, but you got the story, right? If some of you that's unchurched, it's the story about the guy and the big fish. You know what I'm saying? The whale, they said it's kind of equivalent to a sperm whale nowadays, the size, technically, all right? They swallowed it. Anyway, you got what I'm saying, right? You know who I'm talking about in the Bible, right? Jonah and the big fish. Okay, but Jonah was told to go to Nineveh. He was God's prophet. Jonah wasn't going to do what he knew to do. Just like you and I, we know we have to set those boundaries, but sometimes we don't set them, or we just move that little marker back a little bit. We just bend that boundary a little bit. It's okay. Well, it's already gone this far. Might as well. You get what I'm saying, right? And so he goes down, and he finds a boat, and the boat's headed for Tarshish, complete opposite direction, geographically opposite direction of where God had told him to go. He gets on that boat, and what happens as soon as he gets on that boat? This huge storm. It says a wind come against the boat, come against them. It was contrary to what God was wanting to do. Did anyone else on the boat do anything wrong? No one else on the boat done anything wrong that we know of in the story. Jonah was the one. Jonah was the one that was on the boat that needed to be off the boat. And when we read this story, what was the first thing that the crew started to do? Do you remember the story? Pray? No, well, they did, and they wanted to wake him up to pray. What was the action? What was the physical thing, the very first thing they started to do? Jonah chapter 1. They just started throwing stuff off the boat. They was like, man, we got to get cargo off this thing, man. We got to lighten the load. We're a little heavy in the back, man. You know what I'm saying? We're sitting low, and the wind's blowing, and the waves are coming over and getting stuff off. And I began to think, as I began to study for this message, about how we have to cut off those toxic relationships. There are some people that don't need to be on your boat. And I'm going to ask you this question. How much are they going to cost you before you realize you don't need them on your boat? How much are you willing to lose before you realize that relationship is toxic and going nowhere and headed for disaster? How much peace do you have to give up? How much joy do you have to give up? How much love do you have to forfeit to say that you're in love and stay in that toxic relationship? Begin to chunk stuff off. And there'll come a time that you're tired of losing, that you've had enough losing. I'm trying to remind you this morning that everybody that's on your boat needs to be on your boat. They need to get off your boat. Just because you think you love them and that's baloney. Or that's poo. I'll say it again this week. It's poo. It's toxic garbage that'll do nothing but take you further and further and further and cost you more and more and more and more. Another observation I made about this group of people that did really nothing wrong, they just had the wrong person in their boat. It was not only was they lost stuff, did it cost them something, but the other thing is this, it said even after they began to realize it was Jonah, they didn't want to throw Jonah out. You see, some of you know he's bad. You know she's bad. You know it's not a great business idea, but yet you still hang on. It said that they rowed even the harder in the King James. They didn't want to throw him out even though they knew he didn't need to be on that boat. It was his fault. They'd cast lots and knew that, hey, it's his fault. They began to row the harder. Some of you are rowing, and I'm telling you, some of you are wore out rowing. Some of you in a relationship that's so toxic that, listen, you are wore out. You fight and you fight and you fight. You work and you work. And guess where Jonah was? When are you going to wake up and get tired of that dude sleeping all day? And you're working your butt off. You're the only one providing. Oh, he looks good and I love him. Woo. Poo. That stuff wears out. They get old and they get fat. And things that were once here, they go south. Or they stay south. You all right? Too real for you? Yeah, preach where you live. Jonah, I didn't know Jonah even talked about that. Some of you got the wrong person on your boat or persons. How much are they going to have to cost you before you realize? Aren't you tired of fighting? And listen, here's the thing about God. You listen to Promises, great spiritual application. Bishop Michael Pitts was teaching on this. His sermon title was Get Off My Boat. I love Bishop. Listen, did you know that the spiritual application here is that, listen, you have enough energy spiritually to fight your own fight, but you don't have enough energy in you to fight somebody else's fight, especially when they don't belong on your boat. And you're wore out. And it shows up in every area of your life. It's because that one relationship is toxic. It's poisoning every other relationship in your life. How do we avoid them? We set healthy boundaries. When we set those healthy boundaries, if they continue on or you continue on in it, you eventually have to cut off the toxic relationship. You have to get rid of the Jonahs that are in your boat. You have to quit being afraid of costing or sowing the present seed for the future blessing. Now, that sounds big-haired, Chandler, but I want you to listen to me. As soon as they got tired of Jonah's lazy butt laying up there sleeping, and they kicked him off the boat, I mean, as soon as they kicked him off the boat, as soon as they cut ties, as soon as they got rid of the toxic relationship, all was well. Now, I want you to understand something. It is important that you get this principle. Some of you are hanging on to something that is not good for you. Some of you are hanging on to toxic poison that is absolutely, you can't even see it. You're so blinded by it. It is taking you further and further down. It is costing you more and more. It's cost you friends and family, and it's cost you money. It's cost you location. It's cost you business. All these things you think about, it's just cost you, and you're tired, and you're rowing, man, you wore slam out. I want you to understand you've got to be willing to sow the seed now in the present to reap the future benefit. You say, what do you mean? It's just like when Jesus called Peter and the others. He said, listen, if you will absolutely quit physically fishing, I will teach you how to spiritually fish. It's when Elijah called Elijah, he had to go back and he had to burn his plow and kill his ox. And he said, what he did is he cut it ties now. And he said, God's going to bless me there. And as soon as they kicked Jonah out, as soon as they were willing to sacrifice, they didn't want to. They wanted to hang on. But as soon as they sowed the present seed, God began to bless them in their future. I'm telling you, if you will cut ties now, as hard as it may be, I promise you, God will bless you in the future. I promise you that. It is biblical. It has been proven time and time, but I can't do it without Him. Yes, you can. You don't need nobody but God. You got to be willing to cut those ties. And now watch this. Here's something to get real spiritual on you. You're hanging on to that relationship that's toxic and you know better. You shouldn't be communicating. You shouldn't be going there. You don't need him no more. You don't need her no more. You understand that. You see it. Everybody's telling you that. Everybody, even God Himself, smacking you around this morning. You get it. But you still won't give it. Now listen to me. Here's the, I'm telling you, this is good preaching. Bless God. I'm telling you, as soon as you throw the Jonahs out, you not only reap the blessing yourself, but Jonah reaps the blessing as well. You see, until some of them fall out of your favor, they can't fall back into God's favor. Because as soon as they threw Jonah out, God had prepared that big old minnow, swallow him up. You keep hanging on. You keep giving them a free ride. You keep giving conversation away. You keep giving intimacy away that only belongs to your spouse or your future spouse. You keep doing that. What you do is not only hold yourself back, but you're holding them up as well from their destiny. Hence, relationships. It takes more than one. God designed it that way. And until you are willing to get rid of it now, you won't begin to reap the blessing. My mama used to say a lot, as you can tell. My daddy used to be like, She used to say, well, son, if you always do what you've always done, well, no wonder you keep getting what you've always got. Why in the world I keep having these relationships? Well, I want to get any better. Here's how we're going to close. Altar's going to open in just a second. Band's going to come up. Get ready. Come on. We're going to open the altar. Here's what I want you to do. I want you, and I wrote these down to be very specific this morning. You listen to me, say amen. Don't get sidetracked by the movement. Stay with me, okay? Here's what I want to do at altar call. I want you to thank God for the healthy relationships in your life. Aren't you thankful that you do have healthy relationships? And some of you can say, I'm thankful I got a preacher just tell me the truth and keep it right between the eyes and tell me about poo. You know what I'm saying? And things that stay south and they go south. I'm just saying. I'm thankful for those kind of relationships. I'm thankful for the people that even when I don't like it, they tell me the truth. I'm thankful for my wife. Sometimes it's hard for her to see that and feel that. So I want us to thank God for the healthy relationship. Commit to God to work and to deepen those relationships. I want you to commit to God that you will strive to become the greatest spiritual asset in the lives of your friends and family. How in the world can you help somebody else breathe unless you're breathing healthy yourself? That may mean you're cutting some loose. Also, I want you to do this. I want you to confess to God any toxic behaviors that you're exhibiting in your relationship now, because all of us can be negative Nellies. All of us can be controlling and manipulative. All of us can do that. All of us can be the greatest tempter in the other person's life, especially our spouse. If they're not healthy for you, I promise you they're not healthy at all. Then I want you to pray and ask God to guide you toward the best way to deal with those toxic relationships in your life. Because I don't know that it's the best advice for you. Again, I was joking about mother-in-laws, because sometimes mother-in-laws can be overbearing. We thank God for mother-in-laws. I got an awesome mother-in-law. She's not that way at all. I've been blessed with great moms in my life, whether they were biological in my mother or the ones that he's blessed me with along the journey. But I don't know if it's the best thing for you to do is go to that person and say, get behind me, Satan. I don't know. But for some of you, you've dilly-dallied around with a toxic relationship, whether it be professional. Probably, and listen, some of you are so scared because it's your insurance, it's your job, it's your career. Some of you are so scared because you've been with this person for so long. It's an ungodly relationship, but if you cut that relationship off, I'm going to lose so much, and I've built so much around this, having two incomes. I'm telling you, that's poo. My God owns the cattle on the 1,000 Hill and every Cadillac on every Chevrolet dealership from here to the end of the ages. If he wants me to have it, he will give it to me as I put my hand to the plow. You have to get to a place where you say, God, I don't want to be toxic anymore, and I don't want toxic people in my life anymore. Remember, every relationship is about ministry. So I'm not talking about isolating yourself and becoming a monk. But again, you can't help someone else get their air mask on unless you've got yours on and are breathing healthy. So I want you to stand to your feet. Altar's open.